Hi, welcome to Introduction to SQL Server. This is the introduction part of the material of this course and is the fourth edition of this material. I'm Farhad Aftekari and I'm the teacher of this course. Here are the courses link in the courses portal. You may go and find the slides of this course, tutorial videos, assignments, and downloading some files related to the material of this course. Here are some typographical conventions, which you may encounter them in the bottom of the slides. Each of them means something, so there are some actions after them that you need to follow. And here is also a difficulty level indicator from easy to hard material. So it's based on the students that how deep they want to expand their knowledge and learn more about the material of this course. Some people may just looking for get familiar with the basic stuff, so they don't need to really go through these hard topics. But the ones that are really looking for gaining some beneficial knowledge in this SQL Server topic, I recommend to go and cover all of this material of this course. Here is also a slides framework, which you can see the title, difficulty indicator, slide number, and if you are in a slide and want to go directly to the tutorial video of that certain slide, you need to go to this link and here enter the code of that slide and then directly go to the tutorial video of that slide. Here's also content, course name, section name, and those icons that we talked about earlier. And the content of this section is, first of all, we're going to go and cover what do we need to host our projects. What's the database server setup? Why is it so important for a software engineer to have this very beneficial knowledge? And why do we need SQL Server? And then we're going to go and get introduced to the other competitors in this market of SQL servers, description and comparison of them. Then we're going to get introduced to Microsoft SQL Server and talk about the main services of SQL Server and briefly get introduced to them, and then work with this MS SQL Server management tool, management tools, which later we're going to get introduced to Management Studio as the most powerful tool to work with MS SQL Server. Then we're going to get familiar with the different editions of SQL Server and which one suits us the best for this course, how to install an instance of a Microsoft SQL Server, and finally run and work with this Microsoft SQL Management Studio. Our approach in this course is that first we're going to get familiar with the logic behind the content of SQL Server, how to host our projects, what are the requirements, what are the different methods and solutions for that, what's the reason if you want to choose them, comparison of these competitors, and then we're going to get introduced with SQL Server, MS SQL Server, talk about the main services, different editions, how to install that, and then work with this graphical user interface, MS SQL Management Studio as the most powerful tool to work with MS SQL Server, and then work with our SQL Server, working with these different objects like database, tables, and how to work with our data, and then getting the best out of the SQL Server by getting familiar with these advanced features like indexes, functions, store procedures, views, triggers, users and roles, and reporting. And finally, there are going to be some tips regarding to SQL injection and how to avoid them, and some performance tips and security tips. By definition, SQL stands for Structured Query Language. Some people pronounce it as SQL, some people pronounce it SQL. Both are correct. None is better than this one, so it's up to you how you want to pronounce it. And SQL is the standard language to work with relational databases. And MS SQL Server, MS stands for Microsoft. And SSMS also stands for SQL Server Management Studio if you encounter them in our slides. Now I want you to think what kind of file formats or services are we looking for when we are hosting our project or application or website. These icons means I want you to think for yourself individually, or if you have a pair, talk about the question that I'm asking you or search online for it. And I'm not gonna pause. You can just manage and take control of this video, so you can pause it by yourself. And I right away gonna start talking about the material. So when we are hosting our project or website, there are different kind of file formats that we are hosting. Sometimes there are static files like images, multimedia files, or design files, or JavaScript files. And sometimes they are dynamic files, and we run the scripts on the server side, like .NET Technologies extensions, or PHP or Python extensions. But for this course, our main target is when we want to store information. And there are different type of files in order to do that. We can use text files to store information in the most basic way of storing information. Or we can use XML files. Or in a more advanced way, we can use database files in order to store the information that we would like to save for our application or project. There are many ways to set up a database server. If you consider them as your clients and the ones that are visiting your application or using your application, visiting your website, they may get connected to application server, and application server connect to database server and work with your data. Or the users can directly access to database server. The database server can be somewhere else outside of this application server, and also can be included in one server, and both of this application server and database server run in a single server. So there are so many ways, but here is an example of how to set up a database server. And if you previously have experience of hosting your application or project or website online, it's nice. If you don't worry. We're going to talk about the different solutions. To do that, briefly, just get familiar with them, and also talk about if you want to have our database hosted in every single of them, what are the options. So the solutions for hosting our project, first one is using a university server, the other one is using your PC and using a static IP in order to make your PC a server, and getting a plan from a web hosting company and host our application or project or website there. The other one is dedicated servers, and the last one is now it's getting more popular is cloud services. So for the solutions for hosting our project, the first one is this university servers. You can think for yourself to see what are the pros and cons and requirements for that. To start with, first of all, you have to make university agree to host your project. You have to go and talk to the person in charge, if that person is in IT department or wherever he or she is, and get to know about the uh, technologies they are using, the applications they are using, and if they suit your application or not. And there are some pros and cons for this solution. First of all, this is a free solution for the students to use in university, and is really suitable and reliable for testing. And the cons is that there are limited resources. So, and they might be limited services. The services you are using may not be suitable with or match with the ones that university is using. They're mostly using this open source technologies, but you can ask university if there's a possibility of installing the ones that you're looking for. And definitely there are limited ability to handle high traffic levels. And you have to also ask that what kind of database they are hosting and they are using and install on their servers. So to see if the database you are using is compatible and already installed in that server in order to be used. The second option is using your local PC and assign a static IP to it and make it act like a server. So you will need one PC, one high-speed internet connection, and one static IP if you're in Finland. Well, having a high-speed internet connection is not a problem. Mostly people here have their internet connection is really high and really suitable for this kind of stuff. And this is a cheap solution. It's really easy to upgrade because your PC is there for you to install them. It's easy to maintain, and you don't need to have any remote connection. You just go and work with your PC and install or do whatever you want to do there. And it's also suitable for testing, but also it has some cons like your PC always has to stay on, and if it turns off, then your project, application, or website gonna be not accessible to the users. And there are security concerns and measurements. You have to always take good care of it, having a proper firewall or having these security measurements they are applied. And there are this power usage cost because your PC always has to stay on, and it always has to work and have access and be connected to the internet. And definitely there are limited ability to handle high traffic levels. Depends on the RAM of your PC or CPU and the internet connection. And the next option is having a web hosting plan. And there are many web hosting companies online. You can search in the search engines, and based on the location you can select a proper hosting plan. And it depends on what kind of technology you want to use. Uh, so it's totally different. So you just need to buy a plan there, and it's easily upgradable. Uh, Monthly or annually plans. And this is an affordable solution comparing to the more expensive ones. And you can select a plan based on your needs and connect to your admin portal from anywhere. Have a remote connection there and just work with your panel and customize your plan. But there are also some cons here because mostly they are cheap services, and most of the times in IT, cheap services are equal to cheap support and performance. And there are also some security concerns because the servers of these web hosting companies are being shared by many customers like you. So you have to always be careful about hosting your valuable data there. And there's of course limited ability to handle high traffic levels. Yeah, you can upgrade your plan, but you have to also understand the limitations. And the other thing is that your site performance or project performance is going to be affected by other sites or projects on the same server as well, because they're all using the same resources like RAM and CPU of the servers. So no matter how efficient you write your code or you develop your database, that those resources are being shared by many other customers. And also we have this solution to have a dedicated server. In dedicated server, they guarantee that you're gonna use a certain amount of resources such as RAM, space, or CPU. So they are more reliable, and they're easily customizable, and the performance of them are much better than those web hosting plans. But they are much more expensive and require skills to maintain and run, and you also have to provide most of the times license for specific stuff. And the last solution is this cloud solutions, which is getting more popular every day, and they are high in performance and high uptime rate, and they're easily customizable. So whenever you want to add some more resources, you can easily do that, but they are more expensive and uh, a little bit hard to start. But once you install your application there, then get to know about them, and then it's going to be much easier for you to manage your application or project or website there. Alright, after getting familiar with different solutions to host your application, your project, or website, now I want you to search online and go for searching for different technologies you're looking for, especially in the database concept. So go online and search for the plans or servers and find out what are the prices there or what are like the options to select among the servers based on the technologies and the location of the server, and to expand your knowledge a little bit more about this hosting your project and application online. And always remember that for testing your application, always try to use these cheaper solutions, but if you want to release your application for end users, try the ones with better performance, and you're gonna save so much amount of time for supporting and some problems that may encounter for running out of resources. So this is a tip that you have to always consider when you want to host your application or website or project online. So if you want to talk about the importance of SQL knowledge for a software engineer, there are so many points to talk about, and there are so many advantages that can a software engineer benefit from having this super beneficial knowledge. First of all, this is definitely a must-have knowledge, especially for backend developers, because when you want to like program or code your code in the backend part, most of the times you're dealing with storing this information and saving your information uh, in a database somewhere. So this is definitely a must-have knowledge for backend developers. And if you go through the job applications, you may see that uh, many times they mentioned about different technologies of working with database. So it's going to be really nice for you to have that on your CV or resume as well. And it helps you through this programming logic when you are coding, when you know how to work with data inside of a database, then definitely you will become a better programmer. And definitely it's going to make it much easier to work in a team, because even if you are like a designer or front-end developer, when you know that what are the limitations of back-end guys in the mm, database part, then you can more easily understand and more easily try to work with them and somehow speak with their own language. So it's going to be beneficial to work in a team as well. And also it's going to help you a lot to have more realistic IT ideas. It's like architecture, like an architect, when he or she wants to have some idea about building a structure, uh, they require to have this knowledge of the resources they have, like the shape of the building they want to create. So by having this database knowledge and how to work with database, uh, your ideas in IT gonna be much more realistic, and uh, the chances of them uh, being created gonna be increased. So definitely this is also one of the advantage of having this SQL knowledge to work with a database as a software engineer. Definitely there are other benefits that if you think about them, you may come up with some by your own. So think for a moment that maybe there are some other benefits that you can get from it. Makes you more motivated to expand your knowledge and dig deeper in this field. Alright, let's see what's a database. A database is a systematic collection of data. Since the data is a database organized, it makes data management easy. The specialized database software like MS SQL and MySQL are programs that let you store and retrieve that data as efficiently as possible. And let's see what's a database management system. A database management system, or DBMS, is a collection of programs which enables its users to access database and manipulate data. Now let's see, why do we need a SQL Server and what's the benefits of using a database. I want you to discuss with your pair or think for yourself and research on what are the benefits and why we are using this database. First of all, using database can be very time saving for us. When we know exactly what are the structure of data we are storing information in, it's much easier to retrieve that data and then work with those data. And it's going to be much more accessible when you want to get those data. And uh, by making sure and first noticing that we're going to store some information that already weren't stored first, then we're going to reduce complexity and save so much amount of space also. And by using database, we also have the ability to link our data together. And just imagine we have a table with user information and we have the other table with user settings, and then we can easily link this data and a row of data together with the user ID that we're going to define. And using database can also be much more secure for all of these security measurements that this application is going to provide for us. And they're going to be much more efficient. The way they store the information and the way they are retrieving the information based on the usage of RAM and CPU and all of these concepts. And they are really easy to maintenance and upgrade comparing to some methods that we create for ourselves and store information in some text file or XML files. And then it's going to make us much easier for us to modify and change our data. We directly can have access to the certain row of information we are looking for and just modify that row of information without going through all of our data and find a specific information we are looking for. And as I also described earlier, by avoiding data duplication, we're going to save much amount of space. And then on the same time, multiple users can have access to our data at the same time. And this is also one of the very big and huge advantage of using a database. You may see the examples of using databases in almost all sorts of the websites you encounter online, especially the companies that they are providing services for their customers. And in Finland, there are like many of them that they're when they're dealing with their customers, they store their information, like the information about the services they're providing them. So this is also one of the reasons that this skill is very super beneficial for you to have, because almost all of these major and minor companies are working with this kind of a skill. My tip for you is to try your best to use same family of technologies when you're working on your applications for many reasons. First of all, there are so many more related online sources when you are working with same family of technologies, and there are so many articles online, so many other people previously worked with these technologies together. So based on that reason, you can find much more beneficial related online resources about that, about working with those technologies. And also, well, when they are developing those technologies and those applications, their primary focus on testing those technologies together. So definitely the performance of your application going to be increased if you use those family of technologies together. And definitely it's easier to configure, uh, also for the reason that you can find so many more online manuals or resources for that. And uh, those technologies, well, most of them designed in a way that work more efficiently together. And well, if you're like having your own company or you want to hire some other people to work for you, then it makes more sense to ask from these applicants to uh, get familiar and be familiar with this family of technologies. So it makes more sense for a C# developer to previously work with MS SQL Server, or a PHP developer to work before with MySQL. And also, it's better for you to get to know about the family of technologies, because if you go and see about this uh, job applications, you may see that they ask for these family of technologies to uh, their applicants previously have some understanding about them. My honest tip for you is, well, not only rely on my comparisons. Find it by yourself, go online. Now, online resources are really easier and accessible for everyone to use. So if you want to select a technology to learn much more about it, try your best to find it by yourself. Try to be familiar with all of these competitors, and you be the judge of selecting a proper technology to learn. Well, thankfully, because now in database and SQL relational database technologies, they are really close to each other. So most of the knowledge you're going to learn in this course is going to be beneficial for you to work with other relational databases as well. But try your best to you select it for yourself. Here is the brief description and comparison of SQL servers. As you can see here, I selected three major SQL servers: Oracle, MySQL, and MS SQL Server. And there's some brief comparison between them. First of all, as you can see, MySQL does not have an official graphical user interface. There are many to work with, but they are not officially from the creators of MySQL. That's one of the advantage of MS SQL Server because of that powerful graphical user interface. And when you are developing your application, you need to first make sure that the SQL Server you're using is supporting your desired language, programming language. And one of the other difference between these SQL servers is that MS SQL Server can only be installed in a Windows operating system, but the other competitors can be installed in almost any of these major operating systems. And also for the licensing, MySQL is free, and that's one of the reasons that uh, for web hosting companies, when they are providing those plans for MySQL, they're cheaper a little bit comparing to the ones that allow you to use MS SQL Server. And now I want you to search online and discuss with your pair if you have. Think for yourself and try to see what's the difference between these major SQL servers, and if there are any more like primary and major other SQL servers uh, than these three ones that I mentioned here. Now let's compare MS SQL Server to MySQL and see what are the main difference between them. First of all, MySQL is considered as one of the most popular database systems online today, and there's a reason also for that. And one of the main one is that MySQL is being used by WordPress CMS, content management system, and most of the admins or owners of these websites do not have a clue that they are using MySQL, and um, they really don't know how to work with that. But this CMS is using that, and that's one of the reasons that statistically MySQL is being used much more and having the much more share of websites that they are using this SQL Server comparing to MS SQL Server. And also because of the licensing of MySQL, which was free and it's open source. As I said before, hosting companies are providing MySQL, and this is also one of the advantages. But for MS SQL Server, those hosting plans are a little bit slightly more expensive compared to MySQL ones. And deciding which one is best for you, it only depends on the technologies you're using on your project and your own knowledge. And also, you can run and install MySQL in almost any sort of operating systems, but for MS SQL Server, you have to install it on a Windows server. And also, when you are working with these different programming languages, you have to somehow make sure that language supports that database supports that language. And almost all of these famous and more popular languages can work with either of them. From this slide, we directly gonna focus on this MS SQL Server. And first, we're gonna get introduced to it, and then get introduced to the main services of MS SQL Server. Talk about different editions of MS SQL Server and how to install that, and get familiar with MS SQL Management Studio and how to manage a database, how to work with our tables, how to work with our data, and then we're going to get familiar and work with these advanced features of MS SQL Server. As you can read in Microsoft SQL Server Wikipedia page, Microsoft SQL Server is a relational database management system developed by Microsoft. As a database, it's a software product whose primary function is to store and retrieve data as requested by other software applications, be it those on the same computer or those running on another computer across a network, including the internet. And there are at least a dozen different editions of Microsoft SQL Server aimed at different audiences and for workloads ranging from small single machine applications to large internet facing applications with many concurrent users. Its primary query language is also TSQL and ONCSQL. As I mentioned earlier, the developer of Microsoft SQL Server is Microsoft, and they wrote this application in C and C++, and it should be installed in a Windows operating system. And well, the first time Sybase SQL Server in 1989 developed MS SQL Server with another name, and then Microsoft acquired it in 1993. And MS SQL Server is a relational database, as you got familiar with this DBMS databases. And the final version that they developed was that SQL Server 2014, which they released it in March 18 of 2014. And also the course version of SQL Server that we are using is this SQL Server 2014. And here is also the release history of MS SQL Server, as you can see from the version 1 and then up to the latest version of this MS SQL Server. I'm gonna briefly get familiar with Microsoft SQL Server main services. I also have to mention that each of these services can be introduced in a certain course for themselves, so their topic is quite advanced, and this is a very interesting area which after this course, if any students were interested to expand their knowledge in SQL Server, they are the ones that are quite interesting and very practical to get the knowledge from. So we have four main services in MS SQL Server. The first one is analysis service, the second one is reporting services, and the other one is integration services, and the last one full text search service that we're gonna talk about and briefly get familiar with. SQL Server Analysis Services is a technology from the Microsoft Business Intelligence stack to develop online analytical processing solutions. In simple terms, you can use SQL Server Analysis Services to create cubes using data from data marts or data warehouses for deeper and faster data analysis. Cubes are multi-dimensional data sources which have dimensions and facts, also known as measures. SQL Server Reporting Services provides a full range of ready-to-use tools and services to help you create, deploy, and manage reports for your organization. Reporting services include programming features that enable you to extend and customize your reporting functionality. Reporting Services is a server-based reporting platform that provides comprehensive reporting functionality for a variety of data sources. Reporting services includes a complete set of tools for you to create, manage, and deliver reports and APIs that enable developers to integrate or extend data and report processing in custom applications. SQL Server Integration Service is a platform for building enterprise-level data integration and data transformation solutions. We use integration services to solve complex business problems by copying or downloading files, sending email messages in response to events, updating data warehouses, cleaning and mining data, and managing SQL Server objects and data. SSIS or Microsoft Integration Services provides the ability to retrieve data from just about any source, perform various transformations on the data, example, convert from one type to another, convert to uppercase or lowercase, perform calculations, and the other related stuff. Load data into just about any source is also one of the other tasks of integration service, and finally define a workflow. Full-text search in SQL Server lets users and applications run full-text queries against character-based data in SQL Server tables. Before you can run full-text queries on a table, the database administrator must create a full-text index on the table. The full-text index includes one or more character-based columns in the table. These columns can have any of the following data types: char, varchar, enchar, nvarchar, text, ntext, image, XML, or var binary, and file string. Each full text index indexes one or more columns from the table, and each column can use a specific language. There are several tools to work with Microsoft SQL Server. The first and most powerful tool is SQL Server Management Studio. You can also work with MS Visual Studio in order to work with SQL Server as a tool. And we have Business Intelligence Development Studio, and finally SQL Command. In this course, we're going to use SQL Server Management Studio to work with our MS SQL Server. There are different editions of SQL Server, and their difference is mainly based on the licensing and also the amount of resources they're using from the server, such as RAM resources or CPU resources. Different editions are Express Edition, Developer Edition, Web Edition, Standard Edition, Intelligence Edition, and finally Enterprise Edition. SQL Server 2014 will continue to offer three versions of the free SQL Server Express editions: Express Database Only, Express with Tools, and Express with Advanced Services. Microsoft will also continue to offer a download of SQL Server Management Studio Express. The Express Edition are limited to support for 1 CPU and 1 GB of RAM. Databases are limited to 10 GB per database. In addition, a new option called Local DB will also be available. SQL Server 2014 Developer Edition will continue to be part of the SQL Server 2014 family. The Developer Edition provides the same feature set as the Enterprise Edition. However, it's licensed per developer and can't be used for production work. So you can work with this Developer Edition for your applications, for testing, for developing, but when it wants to be published in order to be used for end users, you are not allowed to use this license. SQL Server 2014 Web Edition will continue to be part of the SQL Server 2014 family. The Web Edition is licensed only to hosting companies with a service provider license agreement. SQL Server 2014 Standard Edition is limited to 16 cores and 64 GB of RAM. It provides the core relational database engine and basic business intelligence capabilities. It doesn't include support for the advanced availability features or the more powerful BI features such as Power Pivot, overview, and master data services. This standard edition does include support for two not always on failover clusters, and is licensed either per core or per server. SQL Server 2014 Business Intelligence Edition is a new member of the SQL Server family. Like the Standard Edition, the Business Intelligence Edition is limited to 16 cores for the database engine and 64 GB of RAM. However, it can use the maximum number of cores supported by the OS for analysis services and reporting services. The Business Intelligence Edition includes all of the features in the Standard Edition and support for advanced BI features such as Power View and Power Pivot, but it lacks support for the advanced availability features like always on availability groups and other online operations. The Business Intelligence Edition supports two not always on failover clusters and is licensed per server. And finally, SQL Server 2014 Enterprise Edition is the high end of the SQL Server 2014 product lineup. It supports the maximum number of cores and RAM in the host operating system and provides the complete SQL Server feature set, including support for all of the advanced availability and BI features. The Enterprise Edition supports up to 16 not always on failover clusters, as well as always on availability groups, online operations, Power Pivot, Power View, master data services, advanced auditing, transparent data encryption, the column store index, and more. The Enterprise Edition is licensed per core. And now the question is, which edition do you need to work with? Well, all of these editions of SQL Server is available for students of Metropolia to download and use, but you can consider the resources of your laptop or computer if you want to install this MS SQL Server in it. For our course topics, all of these editions works fine, and I recommend you to download the lighter ones, which takes less amount of space and resources of your RAM and CPU. To download the MS SQL Server, just go to the mcp.metropolia.fi and select Microsoft Store, and then log in with your Metropolia Stone account, and then find Microsoft SQL Server 2014, and then the edition you would like to install, which I recommend you to install Express Edition, and finally press checkout and then download it and then install it. And the next slide we're gonna tell you how to install this MS SQL Server. To get to know how to install instance of MS SQL Server, visit this link, and then there is a full description and tutorial described in a step-by-step way to help you to install an instance of SQL Server. Now let's get introduced to SSMS or SQL Server Management Studio. First of all, SSMS or SQL Server Management Studio is not a tool for end user. It's a tool for admins of the database to manage and work with the database. And this is a user-friendly graphical interface or GUI, and it's official for SQL Server developed by Microsoft. And also it provides a variety of functionalities for accessing, configuring, managing, administrating, and developing all components of SQL Server database. An SQL Server runs as a background process. It doesn't have an interface, but SSMS or SQL Server Management Studio acts as an interface to work with SQL Server. And by passing the comments to SQL Server, SSMS will be able to manage, admin, and configure, and I have access to the database. And SQL Server Management Studio can be connected to SQL Server over LAN, WAN, or Internet. And one of the very nice advantages and features of SSMS is that at the same time, simultaneously, SSMS can connect to multiple instances of SQL Server. So you can get connected to multiple instances of SQL Server, different databases from different server addresses, and then work with those databases simultaneously. If you want to have access to SSMS in Metropolia campus, you need to run VMware Horizon client first, and then connect to desktop.metropolia.fi, and then enter your student information, and then select Visual Virtual Machine, and run SQL Server Management Studio 2014 that we recently installed the newest edition version of this MS SQL Server for the students to use. Well, here is the interface of SSMS or SQL Server Management Studio. And this is the most practical part, which is Object Explorer. And in the next slide, you're going to get introduced to the other parts of SSMS or SQL Server Management Studio. We're going to connect to a server with SSMS and then explore Object Explorer, Object Explorer details, Template Explorer, and a new query window. So let's open SQL Server Management Studio and have a hand-on experience for the first time with this application and tool. Alright, now that I connected to my database, we're gonna briefly talk about the different parts of this SQL Server Management Studio. The most important part is this Object Explorer, which you can explore all of your objects related to your database here, and also the list of the databases that you have on this server. We have the table section, view sections, and the other parts. Uh, we have the list of the store procedures, functions. So this part is mainly for exploring the objects of the database, as is obvious from its name. And let's see what are the other parts that we're gonna go and talk about them. So we got connected to our server, we get introduced to Object Explorer, and now we have this Object Explorer details, which we can find from here, that in in more details, it's gonna show us all of these objects of the database here, and some more information related to those objects, which is also beneficial for us to use. And one of the other very important parts is this Template Explorer, which is very beneficial, especially for the beginners to use. So most of these important queries has been stored here for you to use. For instance, if you want to create a database, you can use like this queries has been written for you, and you can just get familiar with them, uh, use them, test them to see how they work, get familiar with the uh, necessary query in order to create such objects or dropped objects or modify them. So it's a very nice area for you to just hang out and just try to be more familiar with these queries. And also we have this new query window, which is also really beneficial. So when you want to write our queries, we have to use this new query window, and we can have multiple windows added here. So we can just kind of sweep around our query windows from this part, just like any other Microsoft application. If you already work with Visual Studio, then this application is already very familiar for you, the look of the application especially. This new query window is really practical, and this is the part that mostly you are working with this part in order to communicate with your database. So I'm going to write some queries as an example here to show you some functionality of this uh, part of this SSMS or SQL Server Management Studio. So when I write my query, I can execute my query, I can run it. So before executing your query, especially when it's something that affects your data, you need to somehow test it to see if it works or not, if it returns any error or not. And then after it was successful, then you can execute it and see the results by yourself. And here in this bottom part, the result going to be shown to you. And a very interesting feature of this application is that you can have multiple queries in this new query part. So if you write your query, you can just highlight the part that you would like to execute, and the application only, this SSMS only execute that part for you. But if you don't select the part, whole lines of your queries and SQL query is going to be executed for you. As you can see, I have two select statement here that later in the intermediate section we're going to fully get introduced to them, and now we can see there are two set of tables as a result returned to us. So now if I get rid of this first query, I will show you something else. Now executed, there's only one table here. But if I press this button here, display estimated execution plan, you can see how much resources on each phases of running this query was being used. So this is a very practical and beneficial information for you to use if you want to somehow modify and upgrade your queries to see in which part they are like overusing some resources. So you focus on those areas to write like more beneficial and resource managing codes to save some resources. So also this button is really important when you're writing your queries, especially in your you reach to the advanced level. So this was the whole introduction to this SSMS, and they were like the most practical parts that mainly in their upcoming slides and parts of the course material we're going to work with them. You can also try it for yourself, test it, and just go through this application and be familiar with different parts and like parts of this application to get introduced more with. It's a very nice and well written and well organized application. And here is also some links for you that you encounter in the slides that if you want to dig deeper and expand your knowledge in those areas, you can go through them and just be familiar and read about these topics more for your own reasons, and if you want to be more familiar with them. And it was the end of this introduction part of our course. So we mainly talk about the concepts and logic behind this database, why we are using them, and get familiar with basic stuff and comparison related to like competitors in this market. And we somehow get introduced to introduced to SQL Server Management Studio and get familiar with its look and the most important parts that we're gonna in our upcoming slides work with. So see you on the next slides, and I hope you had a wonderful time in this part of our course.